On May 9, 1980, when 5 armed men stormed a branch of the Security Pacific Bank in Norco, California, it wasn't all that unusual. After all, by the early 1980s, the nearby city of Los Angeles had earned the dubious honor of being named the bank robbery capital of the world. However, when police arrived just 2 minutes later, they found that these were no ordinary bank robbers. These men were armed to the teeth, and the responding officers were met with hundreds of rounds from powerful assault rifles. It was the start of a firefight that would last nearly an hour and cover more than 25 miles.
Suspects are in the back of the vehicle firing up on the units.
When the dust settled, 33 police vehicles were damaged, 8 officers were wounded, 3 people were dead. This is the story of the Norco Shootout, one of the most notorious in American history. Now let's start at the very beginning. Every bank robbery needs a mastermind, and in this case, it was 29-year-old veteran George Smith. Before he turned to a life of crime, he served 2 years in the U.S. Army as an artilleryman, working with tactical nuclear weapons in West Germany. After that, Smith worked as a maintenance man in Cypress, California. It was during this time that he met Chris Harvin, a 27-year-old colleague who soon found himself influenced by George's anarchist ideas of overthrowing the government. According to a former partner, Smith expressed an atheist worldview until he made a massive 180 and got swept up by Southern California's Christian youth culture. Smith's new religiosity began to focus on the rapture, which, if you could tell as of this video, has still yet to take place. Smith's apocalyptic beliefs were reinforced by his nuclear experience, which convinced him of an upcoming clash between the United States and the Soviet Union. Smith's beliefs also turned him into a survivalist. He moved to Mira Loma with Harvin, and together they hatched a plan to reject society, prepare for the apocalypse, and earn money by selling marijuana. When the weed business failed to materialize, Smith hatched a new plan to make money quick. They would rob a bank. To realize his plan, Smith and Harvin recruited 3 members to assist them, and the first to join were brothers Billy and Manny Delgado. Just 17 years old, Billy was a truant with no fixed address, but you don't need a home to be a getaway driver. His older brother, 21-year-old Manny, lived in Garden Grove and needed money to support his second child. Then there was Russell Harvin, Chris's 26-year-old brother. Russell lived with his parents in Anaheim, some 35 miles from Mira Loma. Russell was also a father and needed money to pay child support. None of the 5 had a criminal record beyond minor drug charges. This would be their first and final major crime. George Smith planned the robbery at 10314 50th Street in Mira Loma. He later told police that the plan was all his, saying, "I told them what to do in the bank, I cased the bank, I made the bombs. I did all that." The preparation began about a week and a half before the robbery date. Smith visited the bank and memorized the layout, which would help the team get in and out of the bank within Smith's 2-minute timeline. Meanwhile, the men built an arsenal of weaponry that included shotguns, pistols, 9 Armalite rifles, and even a katana. Then there were the explosives. Working in his garage, Smith made several grenades and incendiary bombs that could be thrown by hand or fired from a shotgun. He also made an IED, which the group planned to use to create a distraction that would divert police away from the bank. Finally, it was time for the moment of truth. With the guns and explosives secured, Russell Harvin and the Delgados stole a van from the Brea Mall just off routes 90 and 57. Their victims were Gary Hakala and his 1979 Dodge Tradesman. The 3 criminals stole the van and took Hakala with them, driving to Corona. The final part of the heist's opening act was to plant the IED, which the men placed on gas mains at a building site south of Norco. The men planted the bomb, lit the fuse, and waited for it to explode. The group waited and waited, but after waiting long enough, they realized that the bomb was nothing but a dud. Without the diversion, the men would have to deal with the full force of Norco's emergency services, which would likely be reinforced by authorities in surrounding areas. They decided to continue regardless, arriving at the Security Pacific Bank on 4th and Hamner at 3:30 p.m. Wearing parkas and ski masks, the men burst into the bank, terrifying the customers inside. Manny Delgado jumped onto the counter wielding a 12-gauge pump-action shotgun, while Smith roamed the floor with an HK-91 barking orders. Chris Harvin took the bank manager to the vault, where they retrieved $20,000 in cash. Billy Delgado kept the van running outside, ready to make a quick escape. Unbeknownst to any of them, a teller from another bank across the street saw what was going on and alerted the police. Sharon Dickens, an employee at the bank, remembered the scene, saying, "We heard this tremendous noise. It was the 4 of them hitting the double doors at one time. I did attempt to push my silent alarm, but the suspect on the counter in front of me said, 'If any alarms go off, the bullets are gonna fly.'" Smith's plan was to be in and out of the bank within 2 minutes, but didn't quite pan out. The police happened to have a patrol car close by to respond to the call.
Riverside to Norco units have a 211 in progress at the Security Pacific Bank, 4th and Hamner.
As Smith and his men left the bank with $20,000, Deputy Glenn Bolaski arrived at the scene. The bank robbers opened fire and forced Bolaski into the street, where his patrol car collided with a passing vehicle. Bolaski got out of his car and started firing his pump-action shotgun at the men from 25 yards away. First shot, miss. Second shot, miss. Third shot, miss. Fourth shot, that's a hit. The buckshot got Smith in the groin and Billy Delgado in his neck, paralyzing Billy instantly. With their driver all but dead at the wheel, the robbers' van crashed into a fence. Despite losing one of their own, the men didn't feel inclined to surrender to the police. Instead, they burst out the side of the van and fired a huge volley at Deputy Bolaski, hitting his vehicle 47 times. Bolaski received 5 major wounds, 1 in his face and 4 in his arms. One of them on his elbow severed a vein and started bleeding profusely.
It's a green van. It's 4th and Hamner. They are shooting. Who's been hit? Officer hit. Clear the air.
Shortly before Bolaski was injured, Officer Andy Delgado, no relation to the brothers, arrived at the scene and fired upon the robbers. He was joined by Deputy Chuck Hill, who managed to avoid getting shot long enough to reach Bolaski, stem some of his bleeding, and rush him to Corona Community Hospital. With the other 2 officers at the hospital, Deputy Delgado was left to fend for himself. He kept firing at the remaining suspects, but he was too far away to stop them. Deputy Delgado observed the men steal a yellow pickup truck, which they loaded with guns and ammunition. Chris Harvin drove the truck this time with George Smith in the passenger seat and Manny and Russell standing in the bed. As Harvin drove, the others defended the vehicle. The men sped north, opening fire on Deputy Delgado as they passed him. Just 4 minutes had passed since a bank robbery. Billy Delgado was dead, a cop was badly injured, and the $20,000 was left behind. This wasn't about money anymore. The bank robbers continued north with reckless abandon, running lights and hitting various cars. Whenever police units got near, the men would fire aggressively and accurately, hitting numerous officers and members of the public. Deputy Rolf Parks, whose head was grazed by bullets, remembered the intensity of that day, saying, "As soon as I got round the corner, they're blasting the crap out of me and I'm not even near them. They're 50 to 100 yards down the road." Smith later told interrogators that they weren't trying to kill police officers, explaining that they were trying to hit the engines on the police vehicles instead. In doing so, they injured 7 police officers and a 12-year-old boy riding his bike. When the bank robbers saw a police helicopter on their tail, they resolved to stop it. Smith explained, "We figured if we could stop the helicopter, we could get away, because we figured that was what was keeping everybody else hanging on." The gunman's semi-automatic rifles made quick work of the helicopter's fuselage, forcing it to land before it fell out of the sky. This remarkable development in the chase caused the local airport to close, with authorities fearing that the men might shoot civilian aircrafts. In all of the adrenaline and chaos, the gravity of the situation dawned on Deputy Parks. As he remembered, "I realized I'm probably in the biggest law enforcement chase there ever was, and I'm in the unit in front chasing these guys."
They're moving. We're a quarter mile from the ranger station on Sierra Road in the National Forest. They're firing like crazy.
As Parks' bullet-ridden vehicle broke down, he could only sit and watch as the robbers' yellow truck barreled toward Lytle Creek Canyon in the San Gabriel Mountains.
Can anybody on this frequency see the vehicle? I think Evans is the closest one.
That Evans would be Deputy Jim Evans. He was a Texas-born Green Beret and Vietnam veteran before he became deputy sheriff at the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. Described as a real cowboy, often seen in a Stetson and boots, Evans was a dedicated family man with a wife and kids.
He was the type of guy that deputies respected. They admired him.
One day, when Evans had their child on his knee, he said to his wife, "You know, Mary, some men don't never get to see their sons grow up." When asked what he meant, he answered, "I don't know, it's just a feeling." Evans consistently worried about being gunned down on the line of duty. He campaigned for police to be better equipped to defend themselves, but nothing was ever done about it. On that fateful Friday afternoon, Evans didn't let up on his pursuit of the yellow pickup along the ragged mountainside. Deputy Daniel McCarty was close behind, trying to keep up. Suddenly, Evans' car came to an abrupt halt just behind a sharp bend in the road. Around the bend were the robbers, who had stopped their vehicle and prepared for a showdown. As Evans hid behind his patrol car and reloaded his weapon, McCarty observed what happened, recalling, "All I could think was, don't get up." But he got up, and he took a round in the right eye, which basically killed him instantly. Tragically, Evans' fear come true. Stunned by the horror of Deputy Evans' death, Deputy McCarty attempted to gather himself. He didn't have much time to do so, as the gunmen were now focused on him. Every time they saw movement, they showered his patrol car with bullets. Fortunately, McCarty had much more than his service pistol to defend himself with. On the seat of his car was a fully automatic M16 that he had retrieved from his station's evidence room. McCarty got up and fired like hell, sending the robbers running off into the woods. As the sun set on Lytle Creek, the robbers began to feel the pain of their wounds. Meanwhile, the officers set up camp and waited for the morning to make their move on the remaining criminals. The morning began easily, with officers and SWAT team members locating Smith and the Harvin brothers with no resistance. Manny Delgado, on the other hand, was shot dead by the police when he was seen carrying a gun. He was shot 4 times, the second round killing him instantly. With the death of Manny, the Norco Shootout was finally over. Its legacy can be felt to this day.
Really highlighted what could go wrong will go wrong.
George Smith, Chris Harvin, and Russell Harvin were found guilty of first-degree murder, as well as 45 counts of attempted murder, assault, armed robbery, kidnapping, and use of explosives. They were each sentenced to life without parole. Today, most people outside of Norco have forgotten about Smith and the Harvin brothers, except for those in law enforcement, that is. Immediately after the incident, the San Bernardino Sheriff's Office purchased a raft of weaponry, including 36 automatic firearms and even an M60 machine gun for a helicopter, one that ideally wouldn't be shot down next time. This shift in firepower became federal law in 1997 as President Clinton's 1033 program allowed the Department of Defense to send military-grade equipment to police forces across the country. The terrorist attacks of 9/11 followed 4 years later, stirring even greater distrust and aggression. By this point, cops were fully embracing Army tactics and hardware. As former NYPD Police Union leader Patrick Lynch stated, every patrol car should be a mini counterterrorism unit with heavy weapons, ballistic vests, and helmets. Police militarization has been a divisive topic ever since. It became a national conversation in 2014 following the shooting of Michael Brown and the consequent unrest in Ferguson, Missouri that saw heavily armored military vehicles deployed to disperse unarmed protesters. Regardless of your opinions on the issue, though, one thing is for certain. George Smith set out to rob the Security Pacific Bank with no idea that he was about to change American policing forever.